So it's the 13th lecture of operating system, and we are going to specifically discuss about the focus, that is the file structure, different types, and the related attributes. Additionally, we'll talk about the different operations. Those are supposed to be considered in this specific focus. Then what are the different locking mechanisms in file systems and some of the access methods. It is going to be the first part. Then in the next part, we'll discuss some of the more detailed insights. So specifically, we have some of the objectives that file structure and the types. What are specifically the different types of file structures, and why do we need all such sort of file structures? Specifically, what is the role and the importance of different file structures? Then what are the different file attributes, their importance, utility, and relatively other things. Additionally, we are going to talk about the different file operations, means what different types of operation you can perform on a file system, and what are the different types of means variations that you see with respect to a specific operation in comparison to other operations. And lastly, we are going to discuss about the concept of locking that you can put on a specific file or set of files, and how specifically you are supposed to access a particular file depending on its type and method. And lastly, we are going to discuss a few words in terms of questions and answers. Nikhil, my screen is visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So the file concept is specifically not new, if we say, because everything is a composition of file in computer systems, means any type of database management system or any sort of content management system or sort of if you say that employee database management system, means all sort of database management systems of a specific server. If we talk about, then there is a set of files. Those are supposed to give relative information, and then you can perform a specific type of analysis to get more in-depth details about all those things. So in general, we know that what is the concept of file, but technically when we come across this particular term, then specifically there are different opinions of means from different people, and they do define the concept of file in their own way. So as we do see that there are multiple definitions in their domain, and some people argue that it's just a collection of data or information. Some say no, it's a kind of container, means they focus more on the structure. So they say that it's a container in computer system for storing information. Some define kind of object inside a computer, because we do see that in real life we do have the object-oriented programming languages. So people do define in that respect that it's an object in which we can store different sorts of data information or the kind of settings or commands. And additionally, people also define from data structure point of view. So some people say that it's a specific type of data structure that is used to access or to perform different sorts of operations on a particular set of information. So there are multiple definitions, and almost all are correct, because those are given from a different opinion from different perspectives. So you may have your own perspective, and you can also define your own definition. Okay, but specifically the question is that why do we need the concept of file? So as we know that there is a concept of big data in today's technological era, and lots of data is coming day by day. It's generated over internet or your cloud servers, wherever you see them. But at small networks also, we can see this concept, because at LAN also we have the fog nodes, and specifically at device level also we have the device means edge computing kind of concepts. Means data is more. That's why its processing takes time, means delay, or the kind of if you want to say, then kind of analysis time or response time is more, because you need to perform more in-depth detailed analysis, and then you need to get your respective answers. So that's why for appropriate data handling, means if we want to improve our performance of our network and file system, then why not to organize the files in such a way that you may efficiently handle the files, and as well as you may efficiently manage all sort of operations those are supposed to get performed on that sort of file system. So that's why for appropriate or efficient file handling, means efficient data handling, we use the concept of files. So though you have lots of data, but if the appropriate handling mechanisms are employed inside your system, then definitely your system will be fast. So here different sorts of files are there in picture. So means at a major node, means on a common node, we divide our file concept only in two categories. One is the data files and one is the kind of program files. Now we may say that program files are also kind of data files, because ultimately program is also some sort of data only. From for some person, means for a third person it might be a sort of data. If program 1 is using program 2 or 3 as a kind of subroutine or part of its functionality, then obviously program 2 and 3 are kind of supplementary data to program 1. So in this way, we may define that program is nothing but kind of data only. But specifically, as we talk from computer functional point of view, so that's why we define program kind of separate kind of file type, and data as a kind of separate kind of file type, because the data might be any random data. Means there is no necessity of having a particular structure inside a data file. So that's why data might be in the form of numeric, character, binary, or sort of it might be that some octal hexadecimal data might also be available, because it depends on the underlying devices. And for example, if you have a wireless sensor network, so inside sensor networks, it depends on the underlying nodes in the network that what type of data they are producing. So a specific type of data might present of inside a specific type of files. It will depend on the system architecture as well as on the device settings. So here, majorly, if we talk from operating system point of view, then we majorly define only two categories. One is data file and one is program. Now the content inside the file, because we do say that we have lots of files, but files are not important unless you have the suitable data inside. So that's why you need to manage the content inside the file. So who will manage? Means who is the responsible authority to manage all sort of contents inside the file system. So obviously, if somebody has created some sort of file, so definitely the creator of the file is responsible to define the kind of organization inside file. So that's why it's defined by the files creator. Now we say that we have understood the concept of file, but still file may be of different structure, because you have got the notion, means you have get the notion of file at a very abstract level, because when we say that a file is a sort of data structure, then it's a data structure, means it is defining the memory properties, means how specifically the content of the files are going to get stored inside memory. But when we say that the file structure, then file structure means that how specifically you are going to organize the data inside file. So that's why when we say that files do have their own structure, it's right, completely authentic statement. But point is that we do have different sorts of files. For example, if you consider some financial firm, then their file structure might be different. Means some sort of too many numerical values, kind of salaries, their deductions, averages, and all sort of computation inside the files. So in financial firms, the data structure might be different. Most probably the sort of Excel sheet. But if you are having some sort of digital marketing company sort of, then there might be some sort of PowerPoint presentation kind of. So more of the presentations kind of data will be there. And similarly, the organization structure will be different than of Excel. So it depends on the underlying data that the company or the firm is focusing on. And that's why it will describe or define the underlying file structure that you are going to use inside that particular organization or firm for the efficient management of data. So in general, if you want to define that what is the general file structure, then definitely no. Means no one can define a general kind of file structure for all sorts of files, because we do have various types of organization having various types of needs. So obviously, when we say that all sorts of firms are working on different sorts of projects, so definitely their focus says lie in different domains. So that's why there is no fixed structure. And when we say that is there any common types, means okay, you don't have any common means structure for all sorts of domains. But at least some of the common categories. So yes, we can define, means again, it will depend on the kind of person who is defining those categories and his or her perception. So as we are supposed to focus on the complexity of the files or data, because ultimately you cannot define the type of data by its content only. Means at a broad abstract level, we can only define its complexity. Whether it's easy to understand or it's a kind of complex to get the actual meaning of the data just by looking at the file. Okay, so in this way, the common types are only two, means a simple record structure kind of thing, or the complex structure, means having so many kinds of columns and then their in-depth analysis, some sorts of PowerPoint presentations are having different sorts of visualization inside those files. So in this way, if you have some really highly formatted document, means lots of figures of files and computations are inside that, means you can imagine some banking form. Okay, so lots of data is available there and lots of computations and figures of visualizations are presented inside their files and slides. So those sorts of file structure are supposed to be termed as the complex structure, because they are containing so much information that is not easily guessable. Means you cannot get all the information that is present inside the file just by looking on the file structure. So that's why if the file structure is having multiple components and they have their own values and kind of relation with other data values, those are present inside the file. So those kind of highly formatted documents are supposed to be come under this second category, that is complex structure. Additionally, if you have some program files and after the compilation of those programs, or some sort of relocatable files you get generated. Okay, so those relocatable files are also supposed to be termed as the complex structure, because if you open those files, then you cannot easily identify that what is written inside the file. For example, if you compile a C program file, okay, then after its compilation, whatever object file you will get inside it, if you open it, you will not see anything. Means you don't get anything really meaningful because it is machine readable. So when things become machine readable or machine dependent, then again it's easy for machine to work on that particular file, but it's not easy for a human being. So that's why relocatable kind of load files or the highly formatted document files are supposed to come under complex structure category. The other category, that is simple record structure. It's a very simple, means for example you are typing anything, means line by line, some sort of salary computation or the average calculation, very simple calculation. Similarly, if you are having some fixed line files, means you are writing an essay or some very 1 or 2 line commands. So some sort of command file or something like that is supposed to come under simple record structure. So overall, if you want to state, then we can say that file structure defines that how specifically you are going to put your data inside file. Okay, if it is simple in nature, then it is the first category. But if it is kind of complex in nature, then obviously it is going to belong to second category. Now, again, the same question, that who decides? Means who will decide that what type of file structure should get incorporated with respect to particular files. So obviously it will get defined by operating system and the respective programs. So if you are the program writer, then obviously it will get defined by you through program, because there might be some formatting program that is taking care of file structures. Okay, so then you will define it. But if there are some predefined programs and operating system is taking care of all the underlying files through those programs, then operating system will define all these things. Okay, so in this way, file concept and its structure are clear. Now the question is that we do get the notion of file, that what is the file. Now we have also understood that what is the file structure, means what sorts of data we can put inside a file. Now, what are the different sorts of file types? Means, so first question comes that when we say type, then what is the type? Means what is the file type? So it's a kind of identifier, because we daily do come across so many files and every file has a kind of extension. Means what is the extension? It's a kind of combination of 3 or 4 letters that defines the property. Property in the sense means what sort of data that belongs to that particular file. So in this way, we can define the property of the document, that this document is supposed to get this sort of data, or this sort of data is supposed to be inside that particular file. Okay, so it's a kind of identifier. Now the question that why, means why do we need different sorts of file types? So as we do know that the extension defines the file type. So means what kind of data you can put inside the file. So if you have some sort of extension, then in advance you don't need to go through each and every file of your database management system. For example, if your database is very large, lots of means millions of files are there, and you are supposed to categorize all those files. So obviously it's not possible for you. Why? Because if you don't have the extension system or this categorization point, means classification kind of concept, then obviously you are supposed to visit each and every file inside your database. And if you have millions of files or the document, then definitely it is not possible for you, means for a common human being. Then you are supposed to put some sort of a script, that means that will open it up, then judge the content that is inside the files, that is inside a file, particular file. And then based on the machine learning algorithms, you'll get to know that this sort of data, means most of the numerical data is inside this particular file. So that's why this file belongs to numerical category. If most of the content that is inside the file, that is of character in nature, so it's a kind of character file. So means text file. So point is that if you don't define specifically the extension or the type of file, then ultimately you need to visit each and every kind of file that is present inside your system, and it is going to be really tedious for a common user. Okay, so ultimately if we do have the in advance, means whether in written form or some sort of other form, we have managed the kind of classification through file types, then it's very easy to manage all sorts of files inside our database. Now, what are the some common types? So as you can see that here it's written over here, these are the popular extensions of our normal day files, like JPG, Joint Photographic Experts Group, then Portable Network Graphics, graphics interchange format, portable document format, and kind of graphics and other experts group, means MP4. So in this way, we do see lots of files every day, and we do recognize their extension. Why? Because we do know that this sort of extension is supposed to point towards this type of data, and we expect it just by looking at a particular file that it's an MP4 file. We are supposed to have a notion that it's a video file. If it's a video file, then it is supposed to give us some sort of multimedia content. So in this way, we can define the files, and later on we can easily classify all those sort of data. Okay, so in this figure you can see that there are different categories of files, like executable, object file, source code, bash, text, word processor, means word document files. Then there are some system library files like .dll, .lib, etc. And then print files, archive, or kind of multimedia files. So all these categories of files have a specific function or objective, and then they serve a specific objective with respect to a specific application. Now it's the responsibility of user to manage all sorts of files, and it's a very common thing, because every day we do see in our system also we have lots of files, and we manage all sorts of files using a specific kind of heuristic, if you want to say. Because when we say that a user is managing the database, then he is using his own criteria of classification, means he is categorizing the file. For example, you have made multiple drives inside your system, C, D, E, F. So how many drives you are supposed to have inside your system, it's your choice. Similar way, how many files you are supposed to keep in a specific directory or folder, that is also your choice. So what you are actually doing, you are doing the classification based on a specific criteria, and that criteria is also defined by you. So ultimately user is the master. Okay, he is going to control that what is specific criterion you are going to employ, and based on that particular criterion you are going to define or classify all pool, means the whole pool of files, into different drives. Okay, so I hope this concept of file structure and file types is quite clear. Now we have understood that specifically files are there in the system. They are supposed to get stored in different locations, and that's why we are supposed to categorize them based on the file types. Now, what are the different attributes that each of the files has? So can anybody means define this notion of attribute? What do you understand by attribute?
Like the properties or characteristics?
Yeah, perfect. So attributes points towards the kind of characteristics. Okay, so here, like when we say means from a real words, as we do know that all these notions come from real world. So when you say that define the attributes of this particular person, okay, so you'll tell that he is this much, means it's the height, it's the weight, and kind of things, his color, and what types of clothes are on, and all sort of properties that. And additionally, if you want to state some of the social attributes, means what is the social security number, what are the PAN number, Aadhaar number, all these things. So all these things are the kind of characteristics that a particular person belong to. Okay, so all these things define the various aspects of that particular person. So similar way, if we know the different attributes about a particular file, then we are supposed to get so much information so that we could easily perform different types of operation based on the attributes. For example, here, if we want to define here, okay, in the next slide, I have written it. Firstly, we discuss the concept of that what is a file attribute. So we'll say that it's just the piece of information that is associated with every file. Now, if there are multiple attributes, then it means multiple pieces of information are present. And obviously, if you want to have the additional information, because if you know the name of file, its extension, then it's just a very limited information. You may ask us, sir, we have already given the file type, so we already know that what sort of information is supposed to be inside. Okay, but just by knowing the extension of a particular file, you are not supposed to get the wholesome information. Means not all kind of information, all the related attributes. The attributes define some additional kind of properties. Those are supposed to get just by the values of those attributes. So when you want to check the attributes of a particular file, you are just supposed to go to its properties and just check all the attributes. Means in different systems, the method might be different. Like you also go through command line and then you can see, or you, if you are using a GUI system, then obviously you can go to properties and check the different attributes. Now, when you go to properties, then also there are some security attributes, general attributes, advanced attributes, and sort of different sorts of attributes you can see. Okay, so means what sort of information you want to get from the attributes that you have to explore. And based on that particular information only, you will decide whether you want to perform that particular operation on this particular file or not. Okay, so in this way, attributes assist in performing different sorts of operation on file. Means they become the criteria to have an operation or not to have operation. Then we say that information about the files are usually kept in directory structure. So similar way, the file attribute information is also kept in the directory structure. So because where we store our files, there only we are supposed to store the related attributes. So you maintain different sorts of data structure for holding the different values of attributes of your files. So for example, a particular file is only read, means a read only file or a write only file, or you have the read write both permission. So in this way, there is supposed to be an additional structure in the form of array or linked list that is supposed to get attached with respect to different files. So those are present inside your system, and they will tell you that you are authorized or not authorized. Okay, if you see that it's a read only file, so you will leave the notion of performing a write operation on that particular file. You will never be able to perform write operation because you are not at all allowed. So in this way, the attributes help you to decide that whether we should perform this particular operation on that particular file or not. Okay. Now, in addition to this, means some common attributes. Usually, what we see that what is the name, what is the length, what is the date, time, okay, and who is the creator, how long before this file was created. All those things are supposed to be the file attributes. But there are some advanced kind of attributes also. Those are present in different sorts of systems, and it also depends on the system complexity. Okay, in a general system, you might not find every sort of thing, because if you are not performing your work on a network, so obviously you are not dealing with other sorts of parties. So in that way, means you are not supposed to have a security kind of concept inside your system, because you are not at all bothered about security, because you are not exposed to outer world. So in this way, security doesn't become a critical concern for your system. So in this way, performing checksum and all those sort of things are not necessary for it. But if you are on a network and you are exchanging sorts of words or files with other users, so definitely the file checksum becomes a important criteria. Okay, so when we say that file attributes are really critical for performing a specific operation, then we should get a good understanding of file attributes. So these are some of the common file attributes which are of general importance. Means those are not of critical importance, but still they are important. Means we should be aware about the name of the file, what is the type of the file, where it is located, means actually the file address, if you want to say, means with respect to memory. Then what is the size that it is holding on disk, and then what are the different protection mechanisms. So those are incorporated by user or the operating system with respect to that particular file. Okay. Lastly, what is the time, date, and the kind of user identification who created that. So in this way, we can have lots of attributes. It will depend again on the system and the user, because there are multiple options. But if you are not choosing those kind of security or the access operations for that access attributes or the options for that particular file, then definitely those things are not going to part of that particular file. But if you have defined so many access attributes, as well as you have employed the different security mechanisms for a particular file, then all those things are supposed to be part of that particular file. Okay. Additionally, there are some general attributes. Those are supposed to get part of each and every file, like name, date, type, size. So these sort of attributes are kind of general attributes. So when we have understood the concept of attributes, now it's easy to decide whether we can perform a particular operation on a particular file or not. So what are the different operations that we can perform? So here are some of the common operations that we can perform almost on every file. So create means you can create a file. Now, when you will talk about the creation of file, and then it will depend on the kind of programming language or the tool that you are using to create a particular file. If you are using some GUI-based tool, then obviously you are supposed to just use your keyboard or mouse, and then just in a graphical user interface wizard, you can create your file. But if you are using sort of terminal-based system, then you are supposed to remember some sort of specific commands, and using those commands, you can define different attributes of that particular file, as well as you can define the what sort of data it is supposed to have. So in this way, the creation of a file depends on the underlying mechanism, as well as on the underlying interface that you are using to create that particular file. Now, the file name and the address are kind of very common things that you are supposed to have. Means you are supposed to define a pointer that is supposed to hold the location address of that particular file and the name of the file. These two things will define the kind of, these two things will work as kind of identifier with respect to that particular file. So when you will create a file, like in C, when you define a particular file, you use a specific type of data structure, commonly known as file, okay, FILE in capital. And then you define a particular pointer of that particular type, means of file type. And then when you open a file, fopen command is used. So there you will get a particular reference with respect to that particular file that is created inside memory. So in this way, you can create a particular file. Now, if you move on to different language, then the creation mechanisms will vary from language to language, platform to platform, as well as interface to interface. Interface means kind of API, application programming interfaces, those you are using for the functional, underlying functional mechanism, if you want to say in specific terms. Means it will depend, the file creation will depend on the underlying functional mechanism of the system, and that's why it will depend on the underlying APIs. Similarly, means as you created a file, similar way you can write inside a file. Now again, the attributes will become important, because if you do not have the access to write content into a particular file, then means suppose some files are kind of system files, and those are supposed to get protected from the user interface. So in that particular scenario, obviously you are not supposed to have the access to system files. So when you don't have the access, obviously you can't have the write permission. So you cannot write inside the system files. Then those are supposed to be write protected. Similar way, if the file is read only, means it is write protected, then you can just only read. But it is read protected also means you can't even have a reading of the file. Means you can't even look into that what sort of content lie inside a particular file. Okay. Now similar way, if you want to seek, means you want to reposition your position. Means you are currently at a particular position inside a particular file. Now you want to move a specific page of a very long file, then you need to perform the kind of seek operation. Similar way, some other common operations are the delete, truncate, open, and close. So as I told you that when we create a file in C, we use the kind of open operation. Now, what is the difference between creation and operation? Anyone?
Sir, I guess the open, you can open the file if it's already existing, whereas in the create thing, you can make a new file.
Yeah, absolutely. If we don't have a particular file, then we are supposed to create a file first. Then only we can open it. Okay. Now there might be some operations like in C, we have the fopen command. So when we open a file, if it doesn't already exist, then obviously it will get created first, then it will open. Okay. Similar way, if the file is already existing, then the system will not create the additional copy of the file. It will just simply open the existing file copy. So in this way, the create and open slightly differ, but major difference. Okay. Then there is another concept that is close and delete. Similar concept. If the file is in the system, obviously that is inside the system only. That's why it's in open state. Now you want to either close it or delete it. If you delete it, then it's a physical copy that is maintained inside disk. Okay. Then that will also get deleted permanently. But if you simply close it, then it will simply get removed from main memory. So in this way, if you work means on a specific file, then you need to know about the underlying requirement, means what specifically you want to do with a particular file. Because just in case of ignorance, if you perform the wrong operation, and specifically in command line, it happens more because you don't have a graphical environment. So many times people don't remember the right kind of command, or they use right and don't remember the right kind of switches. Those are supposed to get employed with respect to a specific command. So then sort of disaster may happen. So here means instead of closing a particular file, if you simply deleted it, then you cannot recover it. Okay, means if there is no backup mechanism is there inside your system. Okay. Now truncate means if you want to discard a specific portion of a particular file, then you just simply discard the whatever fallout content is there inside a particular file. So in this way, all these are some sort of common operation if you want to define. Then based on the specific programming language or the data structure, you can work with respect to multiple files based on the respective attributes as well as with respect to specific operations. Now, some common operations as we have discussed. Now, what are some common operations in C? So why we are discussing the idea of C? Because in C, C is a medium level language. So anybody could please illustrate this concept of medium level. Why C is called or termed as a medium level language?
So is it because it can directly interact with the machine, and also but we can understand and use it and write commands?
Okay, so you are close, but not the absolute answer. So point is that yes, we do interact with every sort of programming language that we use, because we are using it. So obviously we need to interact, user need to interact with a specific programming language, and the programming language will interact with the system. Okay, so in this way, obviously it's a kind of middleware, but this middleware has specific types of properties and the attributes, or you can say the capabilities. Okay, so those capabilities or properties define the nature of that particular programming language. So C is a kind of medium level because it works at low level. The complex applications, those are supposed to work at high level, means at high abstraction level. But if my voice is audible? Hello.
Professor, you broke up.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah. So C is supposed to be termed as a medium level language because it can work at low level also as well as at high level. High level means it can be used to define some sort of complex applications, and it can, though it doesn't have the object-oriented property, still The high level applications can get designed in C. Additionally, you can perform very low level operations, means the machine level operations using C. So that's why C is a language of embedded systems also. C is a language of microcontrollers also, as well as C is a well-known language for many application programs also, for many kind of games also, gaming applications also, robotics applications also. So that's why C is used for the best of both worlds kind of things. But it is not always the best of both worlds, because in Dust we do have many other properties like object-oriented properties, and all those are not present in C. So the superset of C, that is C++, is used for those specific purposes. Okay, but still C is a very well-known and very mature language, and it is used for variety of applications. So we are using here some of the common examples of C, because I think all of you must have gone through the basic notion of C. So you will get to know what I'm trying to convey here. Okay, as we discussed some of the operations that we need to first create a file, then we need to open a file, then we need to close or delete a file. So here these are kind of common operations that if you want to create a new file or open a file, then you need to use the fopen operation. Okay, it's a function defined inside C library. Then fclose will close a file that is already existing. Okay, then getC means you want to get, means you want to read a particular character from a file. If you want to put, means you want to write a particular character, then you'll use the putC. Then similarly, getS, putS are also the function. Those are supposed to put the whole string, not a simple character. So getS means you are supposed to read a whole string from a file. PutS means you are supposed to put, means you are supposed to write a particular string inside a file, that is C type of file. And then fprintf means you want to write the data values to a file. Then fscanf, you want to read the data values from a particular C file. Then getw, want to write an integer, then read an integer, and then putw means you want to write an integer. Similar way, fseek, ftell, rewind, those are supposed to some additional files, as you can see here. Okay, so moving forward, we have seen that what are the different kind of attributes, what are the different operations, and how those operations are supposed to get implemented inside a programming language. Okay, so all those implementation, if you are interested in the implementation details, then you can go to the respective C header files, and there you can look into the code of all these functions. So here, now we come across the concept of locking. Now, what is the concept of locking? Anybody? Please, because we have already discussed that what is the importance of maintaining security with of locks that we can put. We have already discussed in the introductory classes and during the discussion of deadlock also, that what are the different locks that we can put onto a particular file. Anybody remember? Okay.
Professor, does this deal with that read and write and all that?
Yeah. So the name of those locks, those were the kind of shared lock and exclusive locks. Okay. Those we discussed means at the time of deadlock. So yes, you are right. Obviously, we are supposed to have the read and write locks. Like when we read the database management system, there is a concept of read and write operations. And here, though we look things from a different perspective from operating system point of view. So that's why here we talk about the shared or exclusive lock kind of thing. Similar way, when multiple parties are allowed to have access to a particular file, then it's a shared lock. And if it's a shared lock, then obviously shared lock can't belong to write category operation. Okay. So here it means multiple parties can't get the authority to write their data into a particular file at the same moment of time, because it will create inconsistency across the system. There will be multiple states of system and all will be inconsistent, because one party is claiming that my write value is correct, another party is claiming that my write value is correct, and so on. So it will be a state of chaos. Okay. So just to avoid this state, we need to have the kind of security mechanism that is known as file locking. So it is provided by the operating system. Obviously, it is not necessary that you do have all sort of security or the locking mechanism in every type of operating system. It varies from security means from system to system, means operating system to operating system. Because in some of the systems, we do need a very high level secure file system. Like if you go to the server version of your Linux, then obviously you'll find Red Hat. So in Red Hat Linux, the security is very much mature. Additionally, when you move into the Kali Linux, then Kali Linux is also supposed to be used for kind of, if you want to say, for kind of hacking activity, because sorts of so many additional tools are present inside it to analyze the existing data as well as to offer the kind of security attacks that you want to perform onto specific sites. So lots of security and hacking related tools are already inbuilt inside Kali Linux. So that's why it's the most preferable choice for hacker. So in this way, means it depends on the operating system, means what kind of functionalities are already present inside your system or the file system. So you cannot always imagine that if this property is available in this particular system, it will be present in another system also. Okay. So the file locking concept is similar to the reader-writer locks. Reader-writer means how many people can read simultaneously with respect to a particular file and who is responsible to write data at a particular moment of time. Okay. Similarly, shared locks are the similar to reader lock, as I told just now, that because when you are sharing something, then you cannot write at that particular moment. Means all the people, because if all agree to write, then obviously there will a state of inconsistency. So shared lock defines that you can only have the read operation, not write operation. Then exclusive lock is similar to writer lock, means you can write. So you need to maintain the exclusive lock, means that when you are accessing that particular file, nobody else is able to unlock that particular file and is able to write into it. So what is the importance of file lock? So importance of file locking lies in its role as a mediator, because it mediates the access to a particular file. When you say that I am trying to access that particular file, then file locking means the file's security or the protection mechanism come into the picture. It will define whether you are allowed. If you are allowed, then whether you are allowed in this particular moment, because though you are allowed, okay, but somebody is already inside that particular file, means some process is already capturing the process, means some process is already capturing the access rights of that particular file. Then obviously another process is not able to have the access rights of writing, means the another process cannot have the exclusive lock. So in this way, exclusive lock can only be provided to one process at a time, but shared lock can provide to multiple processes. Okay. So it works like a mediator, and it simply removes all the related concerns that may create the state of inconsistency inside your system. Okay. So in this way, there is another question: is it mandatory? Because when we are saying that it's a mediator, then it is offering its services to users. So it's the sort of mandatory that you are supposed to, means you are supposed to bound with a protocol that you have to take the services of this particular mediator, means that you need to use or you are supposed to bound with this sort of protection mechanism. So yes, there is a choice in many systems, and there are some of the mandatory protocols. So if some mandatory protocols are there, means access is denied depending on the law. Means in case of exclusive lock, there is a mandatory protocol that you cannot have the exclusive lock if somebody else is having the exclusive lock. Similar way, it's advisory, means though it's not necessary, but there might be some advisory. For example, processes can find the status of locks and decide what to do. If there is some process is having the shared lock on a particular file, means it is trying to read a particular file, then it's up to another process, means it is not necessary to prevent the another process from having the shared lock, but it is advisory that you wait for some moment, and then after the finish of first process, then you continue. Because if so many processes are trying to read the content from a single file also, then again it will improve, means not improve, it will increase the response time of all processes. It's a kind of process scheduling problem, because multiple processes are trying to access the content from a single file. Okay, though they are reading and they are allowed, but still it is advisable to wait. You do some other activity, na? When the first process will complete its work, it will free the resource. Then you come and within a fraction of moment, you read whatever bytes you want to have from that particular file. But if you want to wait just to get the first process finished and then you need to wait for your turn, okay, it's fine, you can have. So it's advisory that you don't wait, you go do some other work and then come back and have your data, whatever you want to fetch from that particular file. Okay, so there are two types of guidelines, there are two types of protocols, you can say those are supposed to be mandatory and advisory. So after having this notion of file attributes, operations, as well as security, means protection, that is locking, we are supposed to have a example of a file locking in Windows. So in Windows, you can see here that in just by going into the advanced properties, you can see here that there is an option of encrypt content to secure data. So if you want to encrypt your content, again, it's a type of protocol. Okay, but what sort of encryption is being used is that you need to explore the details of respective operating system. Okay, but there is an option of making the read-only file or the hidden file, okay, or the encrypted data, or if you want to compress data just to minimize exercise onto your disk, sort of things. So different sorts of operations means attributions are already available. Different attributes are available. If you want to make use of those or not, it's your choice. Depending on your choice, you'll be able to perform respective operations. And depending on respective operations, you are supposed to acquire a specific type of locks. Because if you want to read data, shared lock. If you want to write data, you need to acquire exclusive lock. Okay. So moving forward, file access. Now we are saying that we have defined the attributes, operations, security. Now we just want to access the file. Okay. Suppose you have got the access. Okay. Now you try to define that we have got the access. It means what? Means we have got the privilege. Now you have the authority to use that particular file or its content. Okay, so in this way, access means privilege. Now, why do we need? Because if we are defining an access mechanism with respect to a file system, then we are trying to incorporate some security mechanism. So to improve the system security or to improve the reliability. How the security helps to improve reliability? Anyway, what is the meaning of reliability? Anyway, when we say that somebody is reliable, it means what?
Professor, in this context, I am thinking of it gives the same results every time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unpredictable that it will give different things every time.
Yes. In this particular context, reliable means the program is supposed to offer what it is supposed to offer. Okay. And it is not supposed to give that is not supposed to offer. Means a particular program should be reliable, means it should give exact output with respect to a specific input every time. So that will define its reliability. Means if some program is providing some additional details also, that is also not reliable. Means reliability doesn't get restricted only to the specific output. Means only to a part of output. If some system is giving some additional details, that is also not reliable because its additional detail is varying with respect to particular input. So a system is supposed to call reliable if it is working as it is supposed to be in practice. So as you are telling, that is absolutely right. And when we say a person is not reliable, means you cannot believe his talks or kind of actions. So similar way, if some program is not reliable, it means what? It means its state is inconsistent. You cannot believe it's out. So if you are employing some additional security mechanism, it means what? You are trying to maintain the reliability. Because because we do know that inside a system, nothing can happen by its own. So that's why if you have incorporated good sort of security mechanism, means its reliability is not going to get hampered in any way. So that's why security helps to improve the concept of reliability. Now, when we say that when it becomes important, means when the concept of file access becomes important. So it becomes important when we have multiple parties, means we have multiple users. So if you are the alone user, if you are the sole user of your system, then you don't need to incorporate security because there is no internet access. Okay, means nobody can just intrude into your system and have your files, or kind of hacking mechanism is not possible. But if your system is connected to some internet, or you have opened some paths from where some intruders or the attackers can look into your system, or there are multiple users of your system, then there is a possibility. So that's why you need to maintain good sort of security so that you could improve your system reliability. So if there is a threat possibility, similar concept, if you have the threat possibility, you are supposed to maintain system security. Okay. So here you can see that it's a file control block concept. So here there are different sorts of permissions. Those are supposed to get attached with respect to specific file. Then what are the different dates when you modified that particular file? Inside your system, how many dates you are managing, it will depend on system structure. Okay. Then who is the file owner? Then is any specific group that has the authority to open out the read-write access to that particular file. Then the access control list that is supposed to change its values time to time. Okay, then what is the file size? Then file data blocks or the pointers to different file chunks. Okay, so in this way, how many pointers are getting originated from a particular file, or how many file locations are getting accessed by particular files? That will help you to analyze the mechanism of that particular file. For example, a particular file having a very low size, but having too many pointers inside your system is present. Okay, and you haven't created that particular file. Now you may hope that somebody else might have created, but after some time you see that it has overpowered all the properties those are present in your access control list, and it is trying to access almost every location inside your system. It means what? It's a kind of worm, or it is a kind of virus that is trying to attack inside your system. So because the common properties are like this only, virus worms are supposed to be very low in size. Those are supposed to get infected, means that those are supposed to infect the system very high rate. And in this way, they are supposed to propagate or self-populate at a very rapid rate. So all sorts of properties, if you look carefully, then it's an analysis. Security analysis become easy. Okay, so here these sort of things is the access properties, the file attributes, the different kinds of operations those were performed in last 1 month or 1 hour, means it will depend on the kind of analysis that you are performing. Okay, so all these things together define your system state, whether your system is in a safe state or not. Okay, and there is a software also that is known as Wireshark, that is specifically used for the in-detail analysis of your system packets. Those are supposed to get exchanged within your system and the outside world system. So what are the different...
Like, were you talking about Wireshark?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in our algorithms of the internet course we're doing this trimester, we tried a bit of Wireshark there.
Okay, fine. Yes, Wireshark is very important, and it's a kind of de facto standard for security analysis of networking protocols. So there are so many other kind of analysis softwares are also present, but most of the time Wireshark is used because its user interface is friendly. Additionally, so much additional properties are present inside it, and it's a very convenient manner so that you can easily look into each type of protocol that is supposed to be part of your packet exchange. Okay, so over the network, so many protocols work run behind your system, because though we have opened our system, so automatically there is a TCP or UDP connection is established between your system and other parties, because you are connected over a network. So there will be a connection oriented or connection less system. So if you are having a connection oriented kind of communication, then it's a kind of TCP communication, else UDP communication. Similar way, if you are going to maintain a particular session, then you need to maintain some session protocol. So then if you are trying to have the kind of MAC address to IP address translation, then IARP address resolution protocols, and so many protocols, means those work behind the picture. So all these things will depend on your system type and the type of network that you are belonging to. Okay, if you are a part of a IPv4 network, then v4 address, 32-bit address is present there. Then how many systems, so those are having the IP address, means those who know about your systems, and then what sort of data that you are exchanging. Is the data that is being transferred over the network is encrypted or not. All these details can get means you can get all these sort of details using Wireshark, and then you can analyze. Means my system is in rest position, but lots of packet exchange is going on. So it means what? It means that without your knowledge, somebody is sneaking into your system. He is trying to get access to your data and he is copying your data. Okay, so in this way, means if you have written the proper scripts and some alert system, means some intrusion detection system is already installed on your system, then that IDS or intrusion prevention system, IPS, may warn you that your system or data is being leaked or somebody is trying to copy your content. So please look into this and stop if possible. So in this way, means Wireshark works in association with very many IDS or IPS systems, and then it helps you out because it defines, it helps you to define the secure state of your system. Okay. So when we have discussed all these things, and now it comes to the file access types. So commonly at a broad level, we define only two categories. One is sequential, second is direct. But additionally, there is third category also, that is kind of extension of direct access. So that we'll discuss about later. Okay. So here sequential access means you are supposed to have just a sequence. In a sequence, you need to access all the locations. So as you can see here, that currently if you are at this location, means your read-write head is at this particular location, and this is your disk. Okay, means your memory. And in this, your read-write disk head is here. So this head will move either in this direction or in this direction. So if you want to perform some read-write operation, because it is the beginning. So started, your read-write head started from here, and it traveled, means it traversed all these locations, and it came up to here. Okay, now the current location is this. So it can only move further. If you don't want to move further, you have a reset command. So it will directly come at the beginning, but you will not backtrack. Okay, it will directly come from here to here. That is the choice. But if you want to move further, then you need to move across all the memory locations. Those are present in this course. So you want to come here, you need to visit all these locations, then only you can come here. Okay, so in this way, sequential access. So what are the pros? Means it's very simple to implement because the concept, underlying concept is very simple. You just need to simply access each and every memory location that is in the course of traversal, if you want to say. You want to move nth location. So if to move to nth location, you have to move n-1 memory location, and then only you can move to nth location. What are the cons? So with respect to cons, means obviously that you need to perform, it may be time consuming because lots of read-write operations might be in the process. If you want to perform read-write operations, every time you need to see whether you are at the correct location or not. If you are at that location that you are trying to read or write is behind the cursor, means your read-write head location, then you first need to reset, then again you need to sequentially access. So in this way, reset, read-write, this is the combination. Now direct or random access means you can go, means that directly you can jump onto another location. So here there is a command to go to. With respect to this particular go to, you need to give a reference. With respect to that particular reference, the control will jump onto that particular location, and you can directly fetch the content from that particular memory location. You don't need to go through all the intermediate memory locations. So that's why what are the pros? Means it allows the immediate access, but obviously the implementation is relatively complex because you need to maintain a kind of shift kind of operation that is supposed to jump your control from one location to another location immediately. Okay, now there is a third access method, but okay, before discussing the third method, we'll discuss the concept of mapping. Is it possible to convert one type of file access into another type of file access? Yes, it's possible. So we can simulate the sequential access method with the direct access method, but vice versa can be inefficient or complex. Means converting your sequential into direct. Means here you can see that it is your sequential access, reset, read or write. We saw in case of here, you can see reset, read or write. Okay, in case of sequential. Here it was the go-to because it is the only difference. Okay, so here you need to jump onto other location. So here you can see that with respect to reset, what you need to do, you need to just maintain your pointer at 0. If you maintained your pointer location at 0, means what you did, you just simply reset. You came at the beginning of your disk. It is your beginning, and just to come here, you need to do the reset operation. So with respect to sequential access, you can just, what you can do in direct access, you just simply make your cursor position, means your pointer at 0. It is supposed to point at 0. Then read next means you are supposed to increment the value, and if it is the write next, then it is also supposed to work in the same fashion. The only difference is that here you are supposed to perform the read operation, here you are supposed to perform the write operation. But if you want to perform the vice versa operation, means if you want to implement the goto in sequential, then it is supposed to be efficient and complex. Because if same sort of thing is possible in sequential, then why we are moving into direct access? Okay. So now there comes the concept of third file access type, and that is known as indexed access. Okay. So indexed access is not a kind of new concept. It is a extension or improved version of direct access method or the random access method. So in this particular method, we are supposed to maintain an index that is supposed to point to specific starting addresses of different memory chunks, like as we saw in case of segment table or page table. There were the starting addresses with respect to each page or segment. Okay, here you can see that these are the addresses with respect to specific files. So here, if it is your index block, so here these are the locations, means the address of different blocks. So here 0, 4, 9, 13, 7. Now inside 9, you have 4 different addresses, 1, 5, 10, 14. So from here, you can directly jump onto these locations. So it is the first level, second level, third level, or fourth level. In this way also you can maintain it. Or if all these are in a single memory structure and this is your index block, so from here you can access all other files. So point is, means the implementation of index might vary from one system to another system. The number of levels that you have incorporated in index file, that also may vary from system to system. But the only concept is that your direct access is possible, but you have improved your direct access because you don't need to depend on the future knowledge or the kind of advanced knowledge. You just need to maintain an index. So wherever you want to jump onto a specific location, you come onto the index table. Similar way that you want to go to a specific page of a book, you just go to the content or the index of the book, and you then see the page number, jump onto that particular location, and then start reading. Okay. So point is that if it is too large, means if your index table is too large, then index in memory of the index on disk. Means if your number, the index table is too large, then maintain an index of index table. It's a kind of that you make 2-level index of index. If your index table, if your page table is too large, what you were supposed to do? You were supposed to maintain a kind of multi-level page table, or you were supposed to use the TLB, translation look-aside buffer, if you remember. Okay, but translation look-aside buffer is not similar here because there was the concept of TLB hit or TLB miss, similar to page hit, page miss. But here the concept is that if this index file is very large, then you may make a small index that will work like an index for this table. So it's a kind of concept that index of index. Okay. So if the index file is too large, because all the files on the disk are supposed to get accessed through index. So disk size is very large, means too many files. If too many files are on the disk, then you are supposed to maintain an index. Index will have you quick access, but still it's too lengthy. So you need to search through the index file. So why not to make an index that will work like an index for the first index file? So secondary index that is supposed to be maintained in main memory. Why? Because it will be fast. Because the speed of main memory is supposed to be faster than disk memory. So the index in main memory can be made for the another index in disk memory. Now, what are the advantages? That you can have the easy implementation method, because what you are doing, you are making index of index or an index. So on top of it, means in comparison to random, means you are supposed to get faster access. But what are the cons? That again, lots of time consuming because you may need to perform multiple read and write operations. Because if there is one block that is not now in disk, if you deleted some program, okay, then you need to maintain all the index locations, because there will be swap out, swap in. Okay, all these paging activities will define, means you need to redefine your index tables every time. So that's why lots of read write operations. So in this way, we covered today's lecture. If you have any sort of question answer, please let me know. Any question?